Railroad engineers, have you ever come across anything creepy or weird on the tracks while driving your train? Part 2. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. When my dad was a kid, he and his friends were walking along the railroad tracks one day. They heard the train coming, so they ran and hid in the bushes while it passed. Afterwards, they went back to what they were doing, and about 5 minutes later, came across what he says is by far the worst thing he has ever seen in his life. Someone tied up 2 dogs and left them on the tracks. They were both freshly decapitated. He still wishes he would have gotten there sooner to save them. Conductor, I sit like right beside the engineer. Give me a break. Here, hoping to ruin your hopes and dreams of hearing about weird stuff. I have hit fridges, hay bales, a few cows, and I've seen a lot of people getting it on beside the tracks. I guess trains are an aphrodisiac of some kind for people. Up in the coal mines of Wyoming, they have what rail crews call the Golden Arches. It's just a yellow painted framework that has speakers on it that empty coal trains pass through. A warning is played on repeat saying in Spanish and English, "Danger, get out. This car is about to be loaded." Loaded coal cars get dumped at power plant pits where huge augers break it up. I guess more than a few poor souls have been augered up accidentally after being covered up with coal. Working in a tunnel with 2 other colleagues one time, and we all heard a woman screaming down the tunnel. Like in the films when a woman sees a dead body of a man with a gun, kind of loud, hysterical screaming. 2 of us start sprinting toward the noise, and after 5 to 10 minutes, we realize there's nothing there at all. No noise or sign of people. We're so sure we heard screaming, we go to the next station's supervisor, who informs us there's absolutely no one working around that was close enough for us to hear. We were in the deep underground section, and we all heard the same noise. That was creepy. Have heard a colleague speak about walking alone in the tunnels again, away from all people close to him on the night, and hear someone whispering, and another colleague hear chains at an abandoned station. I'm not a supernatural person, but have no reason to doubt these guys' stories, as they were told to me one-on-one when I asked a similar question to OP. Very quiet when you're on your own underground, so could be mind playing tricks, I guess, but still a creepy experience. Also, to lighten up the spookiness, there were a few women who actively flash train drivers from their houses the back of the train lines. Never seen any of them, but been in a cab with different drivers talking about it happening. Nice. Hey, I'm an engineer on a Class 1 on the West Coast. 9+ years of seniority, with 7 being as an engineer. Have never seen anything creepy or mysterious though, but have hit plenty of unfortunate animals, and trespassing incidents are as sky high as ever. Also, train riders may be decent sometimes, but a lot of them are criminals, and some are very dangerous. Every so often, a story pops up where some suburban kid decides to ride the rails and ends up dead. It's not a safe environment for anyone. So, nothing ghostly or mysterious to report, but please make sure you stay well clear of the tracks. We do not like hitting people. We don't sign up to watch people die, and a lot of coworkers have a degree of PTSD afterwards. My first time on a train, I was traveling in Germany with my grandfather, and he noticed and pointed out to me that we were riding on the wrong tracks. We were northbound on the southbound track. Our curiosity got the better of us when I pointed out that there were some guys in bright yellow vests doing some kind of maintenance, and then we noticed that there was blood and meat all shredded up on the tracks. We were going really slow because of the workers, and we watched intently and tried to figure out what kind of animal it had been, but no hooves or fur were discernible. Then we went quite a distance without seeing many chunks, but the tracks were still bloody. Then there it was, a blue dress. Conductor here. One time in the middle of the night, in the middle of winter, 10 degrees and a foot of snow on the ground, my train went into emergency. I had to walk the length of the train to see where the problem was. The train was right in the middle of a very small town. As I'm walking by one of the houses on the outskirts of this town, I see a guy standing in the driveway about 50 feet from me wearing a trench coat and a sock hat type thing. The first thing that struck me as odd is that it was way too cold to be wearing just a trench coat. I shine my lantern on the guy, wave, and say, "Hi." Nothing. The guy doesn't even move. I continue walking past the guy to the end of the train while looking back very often. I get to the end, turn around and head back. I get back to the house where this guy is standing and he's still there in the same place in the same position. I don't even say anything this time. I just speed walk back to the head of the train. The next day, I'm taking a train back home during the day. I'm paying special attention to this house as we go by it. There's nothing there. The drive isn't shoveled. Nothing is there that could have been mistaken for a guy in a trench coat. I have since been by this house dozens of times, and I've never seen a car parked there, or a light on, or anything at all. TLDR. Saw a scary guy in a trench coat standing in the driveway of an abandoned house at 3 a.m. in the middle of winter. Not a train engineer, but once as a kid, 13 to 14, was forgotten at a skating rink lock-in. About 8 a.m., the owner said that she had to go, so I took off walking towards home. It was about 12 miles away. After about a mile, I knew I could get on the tracks and it would take me right in front of my house. I was walking when I heard a train was coming in the distance. I moved off about 30 feet as it approached to the side away from the tracks. I witnessed a dog walk up to the tracks and lay its head flat on one of the tracks. As the train was getting closer, I called for the dog. I was about 50 feet away. It did not respond. I'm sure the conductor did not see, but it severed the dog's head away from the body. I was totally freaked out. I cried for about an hour. Then I decided to bury the dog with the rocks besides the tracks. I still had about 3 hours before I would arrive home walking. I thought for a moment that this was a sign that I should do the same. As I walked, I came to the conclusion that I witnessed this, so I would not ever take my own life, since it was very disturbing to those left to witness. I've told this story to others, since it one time at a vet tech told me the dog must have known it was sick. When I got home and the others woke up, I told them about what I had witnessed, and they accused me of making it up, since they forget me. It stuck with me for a long time. Not a railroad engineer, but the last time I went on a train, it was from Seattle to California. On the second night, we suddenly stopped and we were waiting for a while. Apparently, there had been a naked woman running along the train track and laid down and let the train go over her. I looked out the window after we stopped and we heard the news. Well, sure enough, she was outside, looking right at me. I was 10 and I was scared as fuck. I looked everywhere in my drive for the photo, but I can't find it. I was working at a BNSF railway in Stockton, California, maintaining the cranes that pull cars off the tracks when a freight engine rolled in with the front end a little caved in, covered in red. The entire front end was covered in what appeared to be red, bloody chunks, a paste left over from rolling through maybe a herd of cattle or a horde of zombies. I didn't know what to think. I felt my stomach churn, and my coworker turned green and heaved a bit. I asked the foreman what happened. He told me some teenager jumped out in front of it. Later, I grew a pair and walked up to it as these folks were cleaning it without any signs of being affected by the sight. Turns out, the train hit a stalled fiberglass trailer filled with tomatoes that was headed to the Hunt's Cannery in Oakdale. TL, doctor, saw a train covered in red bits, told it was a popped person. Turns out, it was tomatoes. This happened on the L train in Chicago. I got on the Orange Line train heading north from Halstead. The train car was empty except for a passed-out hobo in the corner. The next stop, this weird-looking old guy gets on, locks eyes with me as soon as he enters, and despite having a completely empty car's worth of seats to choose from, sits down directly behind me. He never breaks eye contact, as he does, and he had some of the most sunken blue eyes I'd ever seen. He rides behind me for a few stops while other people file in and out. The whole time, I can feel him burning a hole in the back of my head. I get off at transfer station, and I watch as the doors close behind me. Creepy old guy still sitting in his seat, gazing into my eyes as the train pulls away. I ran to the station to my next train, and after riding it for several stops, I get out and look around for my friend who said she would meet me at the platform. As the people dissipate from the station and I look for my friend, I realize the same guy from the train I'd been on earlier, the same one that I saw pulled away with him still on it, was at the end of the platform and still staring intensely at me. I froze, felt confusion slowly fade to horror, and booked it out of there. Told my friend, and she was like, okay. My uncle's best friend was a conductor engineer for a train years ago. He told me that one night he was going up through North Florida and saw some deer on the tracks, so he lays on the horn to scare them off. All but one ran off the tracks. The last one ran in front of the train, along the tracks. He had to try to slow the train slightly to keep from running the deer over, but couldn't. The train caught up with the deer, and he lost sight of it, believing he had just run it over. When he got to the next city and slowed down for a turn, he noticed something on the side of the engine. He leaned out to see the deer laying on a set of steps just outside of view from his seat. It ended up jumping off in the middle of a city a few hundred miles from its home. Cool. A friend of the family is now a retired railroadman. He was in a caboose during World War II on an ammunition train when it exploded, and he somehow got out alive. Another time, very close to the same place of the explosion, they had to stop the train one night. Engineer called back saying they were going to be there a while so he could get off and stretch his legs. He did just that and stepped off a bridge and fell about 20 feet and broke a leg. I was a volunteer fireman. One 10 below zero day, we were called to a body on the tracks. I expected a body in 5 or more pieces. He was rolled up into a ball instead. He had been there all night. Wonder how long it took them to thaw him out. Second body on the track, he was in at least 5 pieces. Thought it was an accident, but letter was found in his home saying he was going to kill himself. Weird, yes. I was privileged enough to see the locally famous Pounder. We're traveling down the tracks when my engineer spots a dirt bike up ahead by some large bushes. That's weird. No one around. As we are both looking out my side of the cab, we get to the other side of the bushes, and lo and behold, there he is in all his glory, wearing nothing but riding boots, beating off as furiously as no man should. I'm not talking self-love here either. I'm talking power beating it like it owes you money. As an added bonus, he was bending over and slapping or playing with his ass too, so that was nice. Worst part was he was on about 10 mile an hour slow order, so we couldn't even make a fast escape. It was one of those sights that's so horrifying you can't look away. Another weird one was almost running over a passed out man lying head on one rail and legs over the other. I'll post that story after I work out, LOL. Not so weird. I've hit 2 vehicles, a couch, shopping carts, a boulder, deer, elk, moose, cows, porcupines, rabbits, dogs, cats, tons and tons of birds, although it's usually them flying into us. I work with people that have hit pedestrians, cougars, not the older insatiable ladies type, horses, bears, etc. Anything else? My grandpa was a train engineer, and the weirdest story he told me was when he was driving a train somewhere through Alabama and saw a dead body on the side of the tracks. He said the man looked homeless and had severe facial damage and was laying by the tracks covered in blood. He did call the police, but said he heard nothing of what happened after. Well, this will probably end up buried, but I'll tell the story. I'm a freight conductor. We hit a young lady walking between the 2 main tracks at like 5 in the morning. That sucks, and dead bodies are creepy on their own, but the craziest part was that I thought we hit 2 different people. The woman that I saw was white, heavyset, and in her late 40s. She was walking towards the train, leaning out in front of us. When myself and the brakeman walked back to find the woman, what we found did not match what I saw. She did not go under the train, so she was mostly in one piece. We found a Latin woman who was very thin, and I later found out was in her early 20s. Now, I thought I was crazy, but the brakeman started asking me if we had hit 2 people and described the woman in her 40s the same as I had seen her. Needless to say, we had hit 2 people and described the woman in her 40s the same as I had seen her. Needless to say, we only hit 1 person. He and I were convinced that this young girl was possessed by some evil entity. The face I saw before we hit her still pops into my mind occasionally. It was evil, twisted, and full of pain. I read that a little wrong. I was driving down a rural road in Wyoming, going from one drilling rig to another. This was in the Powder River Basin, so there's coal mining going on too, and many train tracks that carry all that coal away. So I'm driving a pickup with a guy named John. There's a truck pulling a lowboy ahead of us. He's got a tractor on the lowboy. We come to the train crossing, which is pretty rough. The lowboy starts to crawl over the tracks, then stops. He got hung up on the tracks. I stop for a minute and ask John, "Hey, should we stop and help?" John says, heck no, he did it to his own dumbass. So he's the boss, so I keep going. We go down about a mile, and the road curves around and then starts heading back the way we had come. We were pretty close to the rig, but not so close that the rig noise could drown out the sounds of a train whistle. I look back at the tracks, and that lowboy is still sitting right where we left him. Holy shit, John. There's a train coming, and that guy is still in the tracks. I stop the truck. Quick, drive up that hill so we can see better. He's the boss, so I go. As I climbing the hill, unable to see anything, I hear a noise. Not sure if it's the rig or not, but something. We get over the hill and can't see, so we do our thing on the rig and start heading back. Train is stopped on the tracks. I stop the pickup and start walking to get around the train. I was so scared that there was going to be death and mayhem on the other side, but if there was, I figured we were the last people to see that guy alive, so we'd better go see. Got around the train, and it was all good. The train barely nicked the truck, knocking it askew, but the lowboy and tractor were sitting there just fine, and the driver was okay too. I often wonder if we had stopped, if we would have all been so engrossed in trying to get that lowboy off the tracks, if we would have even noticed the train coming. I'll never know, but it was still a weird experience for me.